much for joining me today. You okay?
Yeah, all good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, really good, thank you. So I thought we'd start, if you wanted to introduce yourself, talk us through what you do, maybe a bit of your career history, and then we'll move on to the topic we chose.
Yeah, that sounds good. I'm Sarah Morgan. I set up my coaching and training business 4 years ago, 5 years ago, in fact, nearly, after 25 years in technology operations, customer operations. Primarily because I got to the point where I was spending too much time in the boardroom and not enough time with people any longer.
Yeah.
And I really I'm quite passionate about helping people be their best selves, which is why resilience is a topic that's really close to my heart.
Yeah, okay, so you've segued nicely there. So today we're going to talk about one of your strongest topics. You've got many, but building resilience in the workplace, with the thought of how we as individuals can do that for ourselves. And then I think we're going to touch on how as leaders you can think about that with your team, right?
Yes, exactly that.
Amazing. So building resilience in the workplace, I feel like is something that is a given, like we should just have that skill, but actually we don't, right? So what in your experience happens when people maybe don't have as much resilience, and then why would we need to work on that?
So I think it's about keeping your resilience topped up. So stresses in life deplete us, whether that's work stresses, hitting your targets, working with people who maybe aren't your people. All of those things deplete our stores of resilience. So it's about making sure that we keep ourselves well topped up. And when everything's great, work's great, your colleagues are fabulous, life outside of work is all tickety-boo, then there isn't a problem. But as soon as those things start to hit some road bumps, so there's wrinkles, and obviously we've seen a lot of that over the last 4 years with COVID, with transition to hybrid and remote working. There's lots of changes that have impacted people's ability to keep their resilience stores topped up, I guess.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. So that's kind of the trend you're seeing is external factors can really affect it, as well as your general day-to-day in work and personal life. But okay, got you. So
it's a bit like a bucket with holes in it.
Oh yeah.
And the more stressful your life is, the more holes or the bigger holes. And you know, if you're in a crisis situation, you're in burnout, you've just not got a bottom in the bottom of the bucket.
Yeah.
So you're putting in as much as you can, but it's just falling straight out.
Got you. Okay. Interesting. And like you say there, you know, so many different factors would affect this. So it is important that we build on that. I guess we get straight to the chase. How would you advise it? What are some of the ways people can start to build this resilience?
Yeah. So there's been a lot of academic research done into resilience at work. And there was actually a paper published in 2013 called the Resilience at Work Scale. So people will talk about the raw scale, resilience at work. And it's been picked up by companies like Gallup. They've used it as the basis for their employee engagement surveys. Lots of businesses can use it then to help understand where employees are at in terms of their resilience at work. So there are 7 factors that are part of that. So the 2 that I think of as being quite foundational are your psychological and your physiological health.
Okay.
So physiological health, really straightforward thinking about that. If you're sleeping well, if you're well hydrated, if you're actually moving your body and you're thinking about your nutrients, you're going to be in better shape than if you're sleep deprived, hungover, eating burgers. And that's again something what I mentioned about the change to shifting to more remote working. People are moving less. You're not running from one meeting room to the next. You're not popping down the road to grab your lunch. You're at your desk. So thinking about your physiological health is really foundational to your resilience. And then psychological health is the obvious one, I guess. You know, how well do you manage stress? Do you take time to relax, to meditate, to just, offload your stresses? There's a Zen saying that I absolutely love, which is that everyone should take 20 minutes a day to meditate, unless you don't have time, in which case you should take an hour.
Yes. I was thinking, this rings a bell. You told me this before. It's so true.
Absolutely. So taking time out, and again, particularly if you're sat at a home office desk, just working. There was a study recently into brain scans for people who took literally just 5 minutes between each meeting and people who went from one to the next. And the difference in their brain activity was remarkable.
I've heard that before, actually. So I've heard that if you wanted to imprint something into your longer term memory, you know, you're learning or you're doing a piece of work and you want to be more, I guess, resilient, but more efficient that day and take more of it in, you should do 45-minute sessions, and then you should lie still for 5 minutes and almost meditate. And that helps you kind of process the work you've just done.
Yes.
And recoup for the next 45-minute session. But in that 45 minutes, you should kind of be very blinkered, like have no distractions and just focus on that task that you're trying to get done.
Yeah.
And you'll get through your day way more efficiently.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I am dreadful for constantly giving book recommendations.
Yeah.
I've even set up an online book store to kind of here's all of my book recommendations. But that reminded me of two. One is Flow by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, which is about exactly that, being really focused so that you're getting through your work more effectively.
Yeah.
And he talks about how even a 10-second interruption can make a 20-minute difference in terms of your productivity. It's incredible. Yeah. And the other one is Think Again by Adam Grant, where he talks about the power of procrastination, the power of daydreaming, and how we can really develop our creative aspects and being much more productive by giving ourselves time to daydream and procrastinate.
And then I guess focus your day, because you're giving yourself time to procrastinate or daydream, but in the rest of your day, you're not letting it creep in.
Exactly.
You've allotted that time.
You've allowed yourself to let it go.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that helps to bolster your psychological resilience. So thinking as an individual, what are the things that help me relax? What are the things that help me unwind and let go of the stresses and hassles of the day? And for some people, actually, that's the same as their physiological health, because it's going for a run or doing some yoga or something like that. But for other people, it's reading a book, playing a game, whatever it might be. So the other aspects of resilience at work. So firstly, it's about that feeling of being able to be authentic at work, to be yourself. If you've ever been in a role where you've had to fit into an idea of what you think you're meant to be, you've got to knock the corners off of yourself. Yeah. It's exhausting, it's depleting. So as an individual, finding ways to be as authentically, brilliantly you as you can be. And then as a leader, encouraging that in your teams, making sure that people know that their personalities are welcome. Because by trying to be an automaton and leave your personality outside the door, it really does deplete resilience quite substantially. Yeah,
that's a really interesting point to make, actually, because it's probably happened to us all. And I think maybe then as a leader, you may have the idea of, okay, I know what works. I know the recipe for success. Everyone needs to follow X, Y, Z. But in that, are you focusing on, you know, the business goals and outputs that are needed, or are you chipping away at their personality and trying to shape them into something, a way that's maybe an image of yourself because you think that's successful? And people can definitely fall in that trap really easily. I don't think it's malicious or, you know, vindictive, whatever. It's actually just not knowing it's happening, and also not knowing the impact on their resilience, say.
Exactly that. And I think if your role models have been very command and control, you know, sit down, shut up, do your job, you tend to be that way with your team. And it takes a while to understand that the amount of creativity and productivity that you lose by people feeling like they can't really be themselves.
Got you.
So that's really key part of resilience.
Yeah. Do you know, that's going to spring me off on another question. How would somebody try and claim back bits of themselves in a role?
That is an amazing and huge question. So I think
it will be another episode, I'm sure. But just a tidbit.
So I think for me, the key or the core of it, maybe is a better way of wording it, is what is the thing that you find draining about masking at work?
Okay.
So what is it about you that you'd like to be able to, but you find that you're trying to tamp down or cover up? Yeah. And just bring a little bit of it and kind of iterate on it. You know, I'll be a little bit more me tomorrow, and then I'll see how that goes and develop it. And again, Brene Brown, one of my absolute heroes, talks a lot about the power of vulnerability. And I think a lot of people at work feel that they have to be bulletproof, that they have to be, you know, resilient as a
hard exterior.
Exactly. Untouchable, almost.
Can't show weakness. Yeah. I would say, you know, it feels like resilience is that hard outer shell. Yeah. But actually it's not, is it?
No,
it's like your
that can be
back
exactly.
Yeah.
So actually, I'm going to come up with a dreadful analogy about trees or something.
Go
I won't. But resilience isn't about being brittle, because actually you need to be able to bend and flex. Yeah. There's probably a better analogy in there somewhere, but be bamboo, not something.
Yeah, we'll have to loop back to that. Yeah. I see where you're going with it.
So in resilience, there needs to be some flexibility. You need to be able to roll with the punches, literally. Whereas if you're brittle and solid and immovable, actually that isn't resilient.
Yes.
So there's something about bringing that vulnerability in with your authenticity to be everything that you are and your personality, because that's what you've been hired for.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, that's really inspiring.
So the next aspect of resilience at work is collaboration.
My favourite.
And this is a huge topic. We could talk just on collaboration. And it really brings in some of those principles about psychological safety, being able to collaborate with your teammates, to know that you're in a safe space, that you've got allies.
Yeah.
And when you're in a more challenging environment, it's also about making sure that collaboration connection with your allies doesn't become cliquey.
Yes, it can go too much the other way, can't it?
Exactly that. But if you know that you're all pulling in the same direction, you know that other people understand what the challenges are and that they're understanding of your challenges, it's a lot easier to show up and feel resilient and capable than if you feel like you're a lone wolf, or that other people are not understanding your challenges, or they're trying to achieve something different, or there's constantly, you know, silos and turf wars going on. That can really reduce someone's sense of resilience. Yeah. And again, from a leadership point of view, that's then really, really important, that if you see some of those conflicts or some of those challenges that are going to erode collaboration, that you're shining a light on them and resolving them really quickly, and you're not allowing them to fester. Yeah. And a lot of leaders, particularly new leaders, can be a bit scared of that. It's like, don't want to get involved, you know, they'll sort it out themselves. And actually 99 times out of 100, leaning into it and getting people together and getting them to talk about their differences or their disagreements resolves it all, and you can move forward in a much more collaborative way.
Yeah, definitely. It's always kind of, it can be nerve-wracking to tap into that, but actually if you just face it head on, have a conversation with somebody, you know, face to face, and ultimately face to face, you're probably really nice to each other, but it's all the subliminal messages, the emails, reading into a tone and thinking, am I doing something wrong by them?
Absolutely. And we are brilliant. Humans are brilliant at telling ourselves stories. Yeah. And the majority of the time, that's simply not true. Yeah. And I get this all the time in coaching, where people will talk about their perception of something. It's like, is it true? Is it helpful for you to be telling yourself this story?
Yeah, where have you learned
what might actually be going on, and what might be a more helpful way forward? Yeah. And then you build much stronger collaboration. Yeah. And much more cohesion in the team.
Amazing. Next one.
So the next one is similar but externally. So do you have strong networks, people that you can rely upon, talk to, lean upon, whether that's working with a coach or a mentor, whether that's a group of friends who understand your work context that you can talk to, professional bodies, networking events, but having that sense of network so that you have a sounding board, But also get a sense of perspective, because everyone's going through something similar, or other people will talk about similar scenarios that perhaps help you contextualize what you're going through and realize that it's okay, and helps plug some of those holes in the bucket.
Absolutely, and it's not too close to the work environment where, you know, you're kind of crossing over, talking about something that's sensitive maybe to somebody else. You can take it externally and you know, objectively assess the situation.
Yeah, exactly that. And it's understanding where that's around within the organisation collaboration that's needed, and where it's actually that external sounding board that's where you need to take your conversation, and knowing which is the right thing to take where.
Absolutely. That's why I think networking events and groups are really good, because you're getting to know peers that do the same role as you, so they understand the environment you're in, but they're not actually in your environment, so they can support you with you know, any challenges, wins, celebrate the wins, all of that stuff, really.
Exactly that. And I think that, as I say, that context as well, sometimes you can feel like you're the only person experiencing this, and then you realise that other organisations are facing similar challenges, and other people are. Just that knowing that it's not only you can really help boost your resilience.
That's it, because in a company your role might be one of one, but in the great scheme of things, you know, in other businesses there's many of you.
Exactly that.
Okay.
And then you have the this kind of solution focus, forward thinking perspective. So people who are naturally more resilient tend not to ruminate on what has happened, but think about what they can learn from it, and therefore what they could do differently next time, and have a real forward solution focus to problem solving generally. And again, without wanting to give too many book recommendations, anything by Amy Edmondson is brilliant around looking at this, kind of how you learn from mistakes by looking at them, by really digging into what went wrong and why, rather than either hiding it and, you know, just pretend that didn't happen and walk away whistling, or looking to blame somebody for it and point the finger.
That's the most toxic trait when that happens, right? The blame.
Truly.
And you're not learning anything from it.
No.
So what's her recommendation? Obviously you don't want to go into the whole book, but how do we get away from, you know, blaming or avoiding?
So she uses the medical industry as a tool to demonstrate why learning from your mistakes is a really positive way to go. So her very first piece of academic research was into nursing teams and what their team culture was like versus the mistakes that they made within the team. And the first look at the data absolutely shocked her, because the teams that had a great culture made loads of mistakes. And the teams that had an awful culture, where there was no warmth and friendliness, where they were quite cold and toxic, made very few mistakes. And this just didn't square with her research. So she was like, my entire premise is wrong. Really kind of got her questioning herself. And then she went in to the layers below. And what she worked out was actually the teams that had a great culture talked about the mistakes, they admitted to the mistakes, and actually their patient outcomes were significantly better. Whereas the teams that were very cold and unfriendly and much more blaming hid all of the mistakes, didn't learn from them, and therefore had worse patient outcome. So, and then Matthew Syed actually took her research and then compared it with the aviation industry, where they're brilliant at looking at every single mistake and misstep and near miss. And he wrote a book, Black Box Thinking, which is literally about that black box within the aircraft and how, compare and contrasting that. So she really talks about how, as a leader particularly, making it safe for people to say, I screwed up, this is what I did, this is why it went wrong, this is what I would do differently next time. I'm going to share this with everyone, and safe in the knowledge that I'm not going to be berated for it. If I do it again, then there's a different conversation. But, you know, mistakes happen, we are human, and that there is so much gold to be mined within. Why did the mistake happen? How could we have prevented it? What could we do differently next time to make sure that it doesn't happen? And actually, is there even an innovative solution here? Is it giving us insight into something different?
Wow, okay. Yeah, so that goes hand in hand with collaboration, you know, having that confidence to speak out, and then obviously like look at your mistakes but don't dwell on them. Look at them, analyse them, and move on and think about the forward strategy.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's where this conversation really intersects with psychological safety, because if you're in an organisation that really encourages that psychological safety, then being solutions focused, being collaborative, being authentic, just part of the way it is being at work here.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're in an organisation where that isn't the case, you're already fighting a battle on all three of those fronts before you get started.
Yeah, you absolutely are. And it's funny, I hear a lot of candidates that want to leave their roles. You know, sometimes of course it's money or benefits or location, whatever, but more and more now it's coming down to their like mental well-being, job satisfaction, and it's actually the people dynamics. And quite often I hear, you know, there isn't that ultimately psychological safety. They don't feel they can be themselves, they can't reach out, they don't feel part of anything, they were over promised and delivered. Like the environment they thought they were going into, it is like a facade almost, and they want to move on.
That's really interesting as well, thinking about that link between really engaged employees and the profitability of an organisation. So you're talking about people wanting to leave because they're unhappy. It's not only the cost of rehiring and retraining and that churn, but actually there's been a huge piece of work done by Forbes, I think, were the ones who published the research, looking at the link between employee engagement and profitability. And organisations with really engaged employees have a bottom line improvement of 147% against their competitors.
Wow.
So psychological safety, engaged employees, building resilience in the workplace isn't soft, fluffy stuff. It literally impacts the bottom line. So I know there are some leaders who will challenge me when I talk about psychological safety and building it, or building resilience in the workplace, that they've not got the time for that. They just need people to hit their targets. Well, actually, they'll hit their targets more readily, and they're more likely to engage with customers in a way that means that the customers are stickier because they get that they're happy and really engaged in the workplace.
So true. Yeah, without a doubt. I think of it in a sales context, that you mentioned they're hitting targets. If you're demotivated and you don't believe in yourself, you don't feel like anyone's, you know, a combined unit, what have you, you'll sit there at your desk and not achieve anything. But you're still in your role, and you'll plod and plateau, but you won't actually achieve anything and be successful. So yeah, really, really good point.
Yeah.
So before we close out, there was one more, wasn't there?
There is. Principle. Yes. It's making sure that you've got a sense of purpose. If you go to work knowing that what you're doing is important, it can really boost your sense of resilience. And that might be that the work you do is important because your customers are relying on you, or the work that you're doing is important because your team rely on you and that you're a really important part of the team. Or it might be that the organisation that you work for is really purpose-led and you're passionate about the mission of the organisation. Or if you're lucky, all three. But finding how the organisation and your role within the organisation brings meaning into your life. When things are tricky, when you've got the Monday morning blues, when things are going badly, or you're struggling, being able to really hang on to that sense of purpose and the reason why the thing that you're doing is important for your colleagues, for your clients, or for the planet is really, really important, and probably it's the icing on the cake when it comes to resilience, but it's really, really worth thinking about how it sets you up for success as well.
Yeah, I agree. And like thinking about, we spoke about resilience as more bounce back as opposed to creating a hard exterior. It enables you to pick yourself up. Like when you think again about that purpose, it's that goal. You may not be really truly believing in that purpose when you're down in the dumps, but it's the thing you're reaching for. And you know, there's a reason I've got to bounce back because I want to achieve that. for other people, they're relying on me, and you don't want it as a weighing down, like, oh, so much is reliant on me, because then that spins off some other issues. But it is really important to have a sense of purpose that's more than just, I want a job that pays me or whatever. I know years back when I first-ish got into recruitment, a large American director came into our small office in Swindon and kind of went around all these new recruits and said, why are you doing this job? Why are you doing this? And everyone was so nervous, and they said, oh, money, like, as if they thought that would please him. Oh, I'm going to make the business so much money. And he was like, wrong. You are not going to be good at your job if you're just focused on money, because we're here, obviously in recruitment, to put really good talent into really good jobs with good businesses that are then going to go on and flourish. And there's a higher purpose, and that is the purpose. And we need to see it, because if we're not embodying that purpose, our clients will see through it, our candidates will see through it, and ultimately we just won't be very good at the job. And then that cycle starts again, and it probably will be rubbish, so our resilience won't be there.
Exactly that, because nobody likes feeling like they're doing a bad job.
Yeah, exactly. So, love that one. So we've completed all 7 principles. I think a nice way to close out would be to ask you, like, what would you like the takeaway to be for anyone watching today?
That is a great question, and myriad answers, because we are all so unique. Yeah. So I would hope that everyone listening will have recognised 1 or 2 things in those 7 principles that they do really well already. Like, that's your foundation. Like, really lean on that when the going gets tough. And which are the ones that you go, I'm not very good at that one. That one's definitely a weak area. Yeah. What's the one tiny little step that you can take to improve it? If you've not really got anyone outside of work that you can talk to, is there an online event that you could go to and just get some sense of perspective? If you're not very good at looking after your psychological health, could you download an app with some rainforest sounds and listen to it for 5 minutes? What are the tiny little incremental steps that you can do?
Or Headspace, you're saying?
Headspace or Calm or any of those apps. So think about which of those 7 you're really good at, really leverage that. Which of the 7 would you say is your weakest? And what's one tiny little thing that you could do differently to improve it?
Amazing. Thank you so much. It's been the best conversation. We could go for ages. I'm
really
sure
could.
We'll have you back. But yeah,
Anytime.
Really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank
Thanks.
you.